We'll be walking our daughter to school. We'll be chatting about kind of the things we want to do that day. And we just started recording ourselves. It checks every minute. And if there's a new recording, then it has permission to just try to implement anything. And it'll go ahead and it'll try to make whatever kind of changes or asks that we made. I implemented all these changes and it's live. Here it is. And I'm like, what the heck? I don't know. Like, they weren't meant to be live. People are on that website looking, and I don't want that stuff there. Like, what is happening? We responded to this email in all caps, and I was like, what the hell? Like, what did you do? How do I actually do this? Because just giving it rules is not going to work.
Priya, Rose, thanks so much for joining on the show. I hit you up on X because I saw you do a fun experiment where you were talking about how you were using personal AI. I'd love to better understand how you're using it. But before you do, can you just explain who you are and how you got started with personal AI?
Sure. I'm Priya. I'm a software engineer, and I have been for years, since pre-AI, and I used to live in SF and work at startups. And then I took a very strange sabbatical where I started a community called Fractal, which was actually like a co-living community, 40 friends all in the same apartment building. And that eventually became something called Fractal University, where we taught each other classes out of our living rooms, art classes, but also a lot of STEM classes as well, like machine learning, that sort of thing. And then eventually that became like an actual physical co-working space, membership-based co-working space called Fractal Campus. From Fractal Campus, we teach a couple more big flagship classes. The main one we teach right now is a 6-week class. It just meets once a week on Saturdays, and it's for white-collar professionals who want to learn how to use AI so they can apply it to their work.
Sweet. And so how are you finding or what are you teaching them? What are the main, are there basics, or there's sort of a core sort of structure or tools you're teaching them?
Yeah, it's really exciting because I feel like sometime in the last couple of months, the tools just evolved such that it's really easy for anyone, non-technical people, to just be onboarded really fast and be shipping stuff really fast. So basically, class 1, we teach them Zoe, which is your personal computer, but lives on a website and has GUI, and it's really easy for anyone to use. It doesn't feel technical at all. And you can kind of connect it to any of your cloud subscription, your Codex subscription. You can deploy websites really easily from there. You can text it via Telegram. You can kind of just set up a bunch of integrations. And so basically, by the end of that class, I think people's minds are really blown because they can just be like, hey, build me an app that does this. And then the whole thing will be built in live. And it's very exciting for them.
That's awesome. And so do you remember how you heard about Zoe Computer?
Yeah, I heard about Zoe because I know Ben, who's the co-founder of Zoe. And so, I don't know, I heard about it through him. He came and he gave a talk at our space. And then I heard about it through a group chat of a bunch of friends that were in together. But I remember when he first kind of pitched it, I actually felt oh, this tool is too technical. This won't serve my students. But actually, just a couple of weeks ago, before our latest class started, Liam came to me and was like, this is really an amazing tool. We have to teach all our students this. And then now I started using it just so I could teach the students it. And I'm completely converted. I use Zoe completely. It's my main workflow. I really love it.
I think that's what's amazing is that's how I came across your post on X, was this fun example around how you use Zoe, and you kind of ramble into it. But we'd love for you to kind of go into detail of that specific example.
Yeah, totally. So I use Otter, which is just an app that lets you record things and gives you transcripts. And I've used it for many years. I just like to have transcripts when I'm co-working with my husband and with friends. My husband's also our other co-founder. And my husband's and I's main workflow right now is often we'll be on walks. We'll be walking our daughter to school. We'll be chatting about kind of the things we want to do that day. And we just started recording ourselves via Otter. And basically, my Zoe is always listening for my Otter. Is there a new recording? It checks every minute. And if there's a new recording, then it has permission to just try to implement anything. Sometimes we're just chatting. So we might be rambling for 45 minutes. But part of the ramble is a couple of minutes where we're talking about some changes that we'd like to make to the website. And then Zoe will go ahead. It's connected to my GitHub. It's connected to basically a bunch of my stuff. It's connected to my email. And it'll go ahead and it'll try to make whatever kind of changes or asks that we made.
Sweet. And is there anything that you don't connect to your Zoe?
Yeah, so I technically connect my email, but only read and not write right now. I am a little worried about it sending messages that just sound weird, basically. I have been experimenting. I feel like I have a fairly high risk tolerance and I want to let my Zoe go and do everything. So I'm trying to take steps forward to like learn to trust it more. Most recently, I set something up where Zoe will order me Costco groceries on Instacart. But just in case, I basically use a separate credit card, and the credit card has a spending limit, so it doesn't accidentally go and basically spend a bunch of money. But we'll see. I think over time, I'm hoping that obviously, I always want these protections in place. But yeah, I would love for it to spend money for me more liberally. I'd love for it to email for me, but we're not quite there yet.
I love that Instacart Costco example. Is it through your bank? Do you have like a virtual card, or is it specifically for agents?
Yeah, specifically for agents, I'm using privacy.com.
Okay.
I just started using it because somebody recommended it to me like a couple weeks ago when I set this up. But yeah, so far it seems like it works and it was very easy to set up.
Cool. And so Zoe is basically your main, what people like refer to as their agent, but it also is a computer file system. It's like kind of everything package. And so in terms of the class that you're teaching folks, right? So they're just getting started. It sounds like you're pretty advanced. Where at the end of the class, like what do you see, or what are some examples of how people are using Zoe that you don't use?
It's not even even by like week 2 or 3, the students are shipping stuff that I think is kind of mind blowing, even considering like what would have been possible a year ago. So for example, my friend Kayla, she's a VC and she hosts a lot of events, and she basically like almost every night, like most weeknights. And there's like a whole process after events where she basically needs to like put together a report of how it went and who came and like what follow-ups are needed. And she has to kind of like report to her team on this. And that process used to take her 45 minutes. And then she basically used AI she basically made herself like her own special transcription app. And on the way walking home from her office to her home, she just like talks into the transcription app and says like all of her takeaways. But then also it's pulling in data from Luma, like who the guest list was, and data from elsewhere. And it basically produces the reports for her. So now it feels almost like it takes zero time because it's just like she's using her walk and she's just chatting as though she was chatting to a friend. And everything people build is like that. Like another one of our students built this like incredible game. He works for the New York City government and he's kind of like a policy wonk. And he was thinking about how The Sims, like there's all these simulation games where you can kind of like build buildings and stuff, but actually they're like nothing like real life, because in real life you have to actually like handle all the regulations and all the laws. So he basically made this like real life simulation game based on New York City laws, where you're kind of simulating trying to build things, but going through the actual real political process to get things built.
So it's order for him to basically speed up the process, or just a game just for fun?
Yeah, it's just for fun. And I think maybe for like almost like an educational game. I do think his ultimate goal is that you could use this to kind of like practice and to kind of like learn how to better navigate the process, because every like law is actually pulled from the actual real New York City laws and stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What I love about this is like, it sounds like a lot of people now have the ability to build their own, whether it's games or products or tools or workflows, just like on demand, right? Like whatever, they're limited by their imagination or like their experience. And so like, I remember you were telling me that you built something for your kid or with a friend around like just custom tools.
Yeah, totally. I'll tell you about that. For context, I have a 2-year-old. And so, I've been a software engineer for a number of years, but then I took a lot of time off to raise her. And while I was taking time off, all of this stuff was happening in AI. And I was like, oh no, I'm falling terribly behind, and so when I wanted to get back into it, I basically talked to a friend of mine who was a software engineer at Google and like very capable, also has a kid. And we decided to pair on a project so that I could kind of learn the ropes. And we made this app for our kids that basically like they're too young to read. And so instead, it's like a phone app for them, like for calling their grandparents, calling, their uncles and aunts. But it just shows a couple of photos. So it shows like a photo of each grandparent, each uncle and aunt, and they just press the photo and they can use that to do a video call. And what's crazy is like we built that at least a year ago, I would say. But honestly, I think if I rebuilt it now, I think it would take me like 20 minutes or something. Like I actually just feel like the tools have gotten way better. Plus, of course, I've gotten past the learning curves. Like I kind of understand it all better. But yeah, I think it's crazy to think back. Back then, I was like, whoa, this is way easier than I thought. And now it's like even easier.
And so, number one, I love that app. Like, I kind of want that on my phone of just buttons to press people's faces, and then it would call them. Like now, I feel like my workflow is like I go to like my iMessage and then like click their face and then call them there, or just have Siri call them, I guess. But so, if you were to build it today, what's your workflow? Like, do you go straight to Zoe? Do you go to like a Codex or a Claude? Like, what do you use?
Yeah, here's what I'm doing. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm opening my Otter and I'm just saying, could you please make me an app that will basically the app should show 4 photos in a grid, and that's it. The photos I'll add later, but you can just use placeholders for now. And when you click on the photo, it should call that person, video call them ideally. And yeah, maybe just make that and send me a link and I'll take a look. Okay, so basically, I just set that off. We'll see. I don't know. This might be a hard problem, but
Cool.
but
Let's
basically,
see.
my Otter's
Yeah.
always listening. So my Zoe is always listening to my Otter, pulls every minute, and then it has to wait a couple of minutes to make sure that I'm like fully done recording, basically. And then it will try to build this for me. It will give me a link via Zoe because Zoe does hosting as well, and it'll email me when it's done.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see what happens. The other things is feel like I came across on your profile, and I'll pull it up later, but you did a thing where you kind of strip PDFs that you want to read and kind of like convert them so you can read them on your Kindle, or you can turn them into like EPUBs.
Right. Yeah, so specifically, sometimes my friends, like especially online, my Twitter friends, they'll write these books and sell them via Gumroad. And for the most part, when you buy them via Gumroad, they're basically delivered as PDFs. And that's kind of annoying of a reading experience, especially if you're trying to read on your phone. So I convert them into ebooks, like EPUBs. And it's kind of a fun story because I basically tweeted about how I did this. And literally the founder of Gumroad responded to me, and he calls him Edward Gumclaw, but it's basically like his new AI CEO of Gumroad. And so he basically told the agent, like publicly via Twitter, like, hey, can you implement this? And then the agent responded to him and was like, yep, it's implemented. Here's the PR link. And then there's still a human review, but basically Sahil reviewed it and then shipped it. And so now you don't even need to do this anymore. My tack is no longer relevant because now if you go to Gumroad and you buy a book, you will always get the EPUB version as well.
So I love that for like a bunch of reasons. One is that you were just doing this for yourself, and then you published it, and then the founder of Gumroad saw it and then made it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. We should totally do this automatically. And then had its AI that's on Twitter, right? Like implement it completely. So it's kind of like this magical sort of space, I think, that people on X who are, I would say, tech nerds and like just like at the forefront of a lot of this stuff are kind of living in the future where if your product doesn't do a thing yet, but the user is like, no, it should work this way. And then the product itself will implement that feature. And then a human or maybe just like some rules-based system will say, should this be published or spread to everybody else that's using this product? Because it's a good idea. And so rather than having like meetings or people internally, like I saw something that they right now spend more on like LLMs than they do on humans. He works for the IRS now. Like Gumroad is basically, on autopilot to some extent, but it's super, super fascinating. What was that like in terms of just that experience of, I don't know, that interaction for you of like this AI building this thing for you, right? Because I'm assuming you had your Zoe converted for you, like you didn't manually convert it.
Right, of course. Yeah, it was really exciting. I feel like I'm the type of person who like, I'll often like, when websites have like the little feedback box, I'll often give them feedback and be like, I would love this thing. And I know that it's just like going to a backlog somewhere and going to be ignored forever. And now I feel like, oh, wait, actually, I can give real feedback. And at least for live companies, like it might just get implemented. And so that is very exciting.
Yeah. And or you don't even actually have to wait for the company to do it. You can do it yourself.
Yes.
Right. Like you can have your AI just build it for you, and it's more about you doing the good deed of kind of like sharing it with other people because they might benefit from it,
Right.
which is amazing. I think that's the, like, people. So is that the role of humans in the future, is like finding the sort of new experiences and then kind of like directing that to AI?
I think so. Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is like if you have SaaS companies that are like essentially completely run by AI, like Gumroad, then basically like you also have competitors to all of those companies, and it feels like just like margins on SaaS go down a lot. But it does feel like you can always you can see new things that nobody's done before, and then you can kind of like go and implement them. Or you can just be like way more ambitious and you can do more things in the physical world. You can focus on like the sort of work that AI can't do, and then use AI to kind of like make everything else feel automated and you don't have to worry about it. It reminds me of, I have a friend who started like a food company. So it's these like protein bars. They're like Indian flavored protein bars. And basically the whole company, like all the logistics, all the website, all that is AI enabled. But of course you have like real food that you need to make and you need to ship and all that stuff. So that is handled by humans.
Fascinating. And so it's like an AI company, or like their entire, all the sort of like business side is done by AI, but all the sort of physical labor is done by humans.
Right, right, right. I mean, I suspect probably they're still doing a lot of creative work and stuff, and they're trying new recipes and maybe the marketing. There's humans in the loop there and stuff. But yeah, the AI is taking away like a lot of kind of the drudgery.
Nice. So you're like completely AI pilled,
Yeah.
being checked out for 2 years from the trend to being fully in it. Like, how'd you get in it so quickly? Like, was it a hard like transition?
Well, so I'm lucky. I'm in a great position, basically. So my husband's also a software engineer. He started like this tech school 2 years ago, where originally he was training software engineers. And then eventually we kind of transitioned to just training professionals who aren't trying to transition into software engineers, but who just want to kind of use AI in their jobs. So yeah, I feel like he's at the cutting edge. Liam, who's our other co-founder, he's at the cutting edge. I'm basically like in a friend group and social contexts where like lots of people are using this stuff. So once I was ready to use it, it was like easy. It's like easy for me to ask anybody questions. I do remember that feeling though, when I like didn't really feel like I had that much time to play around with AI, and I was just like really busy raising my daughter. And I was like, oh no, like, am I getting left behind? You know, people were talking about Cloud Code, and I hadn't, like, there were months and months where I like heard about Cloud Code, but I'd literally never even opened it. And it seemed kind of intimidating. It just turns out that it's like a really, really small learning curve, especially now. And I'm sure it'll get easier and easier going forward. And so I felt like, I don't know, basically what happened is when I really wanted to get back into it, I built an app, and it was an app for my friends, and I was really excited about it. And I used Claude Design, which was like blowing my mind. And the app just like looked amazing and it worked great. I probably spent like a week and a half or two making it fully what I want. And then that iteration kind of got me pretty far up to speed. I still think there's some things I'm missing, but yeah, I kind of ambiently learned that from my friends.
And how much of your like software experience helped with that?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm teaching students who like don't have any software experience, and they are making fully functional apps in a week that they're using, and that's making their jobs easier. So I suspect like maybe, you know, if I was working at a company where it's like, you know, the product is going out to millions of people, like maybe some of my software experience is still relevant. But often I find that like otherwise, like, I feel like I can totally abstract away all the stuff I used to know. Occasionally, like if the agent isn't doing what you want, it's nice that I have like a whole vocabulary. I think it makes talking to the agent a little bit easier, but also I don't know that it matters that much.
Amazing. I think that's like so cool in terms of the sort of your exposure to people that are just getting started, and seeing them sort of adopt it really quickly has been awesome. And then in terms of like other areas in your life that you find you're using personally, are you using any, like you built this app for your daughter. Are there any other things you're thinking about as a parent, of like how you're going to use AI, raising your kid, teaching your kid?
That's a good question. Sometimes I like to daydream on this. I mean, I think it's cool that like basically my daughter won't be able to read for a while. She's 2. So I think it's like she's just getting to the point where she can form like full grammatical sentences. So I think it'd be cool to set it up so that she can kind of like talk, and maybe this is just Chat GPT voice mode. But yeah, I would like to like onboard her onto AI soon. But in terms of like tools, I'm not sure yet. I'm sure we will end up doing something, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
yet.
Are there some things that in your life that you're not explicitly not using AI, either because you tried
Yeah.
and it doesn't work, or you just want to keep that to yourself?
I think there's some, like, mostly I'm pretty comfortable using AI for everything. And even like, it's like, I definitely will use AI as a therapist. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'll just like voice note and be like, I'm having a bad day. Like, here's the situation. What do I do? And then my agent responds and is like, you should drink a glass of water. And then like, you should lay in bed for 10 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. And it works. It works 100% of the time. But
Amazing.
yeah, like, I think there is a way in which like, if you're trying to work on too many projects at once and you let AI like go off and do things, like sometimes there is this kind of overwhelm where like it's coming back to you, maybe it's doing bad work and it's almost like moving too fast or something. So I do my goal setting totally without AI, and I have like a weekly planning worksheet that I've done for a long time, and I just do that in a Google Doc. And so like I try to think about my priorities and my values outside of AI. And I try to like have loops where basically every morning there's something I'll do where I'll think about what my to-do list is for the day, but I have a process for it. And that's like sans AI. And then kind of every week, I don't do it every week, but like basically on a weekly and a daily cadence, I try to like pull myself fully out and just be like, what do I care about? Am I going in the right direction?
That's so fascinating in terms of, yeah, like that's also amazing to hear because I find that a lot of people, myself included, will experiment with just having the AI tell you what to do today. Like, hey, here are the things that I need to do. But I think the grounding exercise that you articulated around, starting from what you want to do or what you want to do that week without AI is refreshing to hear. In terms of what's like one thing that you find so simple, but most people are like wowed about at school or just in everyday life when you kind of explain to them how to use AI in their life?
I think the biggest one for me has been this kind of otter flow, like just this idea that I can just talk to my phone and then, see the results. And not just that, but like Zoe in general. So like you can just message Zoe on Telegram or on Discord or on Slack or anything like that. And so my best friend, he's in politics. And so he's mostly interacting with people who like don't have these setups. And he's found that like he'll partway through the conversation, he'll basically like message Zoe in the context of the conversation and just be like, hey, can you build this thing? And then show it to people. And it's usually done within a few minutes. And that like really blows people's minds.
Wow. And is Zoe's not its own AI? It's just like a layer on top of like a ChatGPT or a Claude?
Exactly. Yep.
And which one, do you have a preference of which LLM you use?
Right now I'm using ChatGPT. My sense is that I was preferring Fable, but also, I don't know, my friends feel like ChatGPT Soul is pretty good, pretty comparable. I don't know. I don't have like a strong sense of, oh, this model is worse, this model is better. It feels like so fuzzy.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to tell the difference unless you have specific benchmarks or things that you are testing against and running at the same time to kind of see the outputs. But do you notice a personality difference, or like does Zoe have a personality that you customize, or it's just vanilla out of the box, whatever Claude or ChatGPT offers?
I did give it a bit of a personality. I have a prompt, and maybe I can link it to you because it's public if other people want to try it. But I have a prompt that I gave to Zoe, and I basically said, like, I want you to speak to me the way that I want to be spoken to. Specifically, the reason this is such a generalized prompt is it's also a prompt that is available to our students. And so basically it like first kind of like looks through all your integrations, like if it sees your emails or if it knows like, because I also have what a personal OS folder, which is basically like, it just knows a lot about me. And I'm kind of like, oh, here's my like Substack and here's my Twitter and here's the Fractal websites. And like, just make sure you have all this context about me. Anyway, so with this prompt, I basically say, like, go look at the stuff that I've written that you can see so that you get a sense of, like, the way I like to talk, basically. And then ask me a couple of questions about how I want to be talked to. And then, in general, I just want, like, I don't know, I want it to be concise. I want it to be, like, to the point. So, yeah, I've affected the voice a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, I would love to see it, and I'll share it in the show notes here. That would be awesome. And then, do you get to that point right away, or like you've been developing it to customize it over time? Is it set and forget?
I basically set it and forget it with this one. But yeah, I would say like in the past, like if an AI agent, the way it responds to me, like annoys me, then I'll like respond and be like, don't do that again, you know? And so then it's just like throwing it into its agent MD somewhere to like remember how I like to be talked to. I don't think it's perfect, but I will give it feedback about how I want to be talked to.
Okay. In terms of, are there areas in your life that you haven't really connected to your Zoe or that you're like in the process of transitioning to? Because it seems like you're pretty dialed in. So I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
if there are any holdouts.
I mean, honestly, I'm sure there's things I haven't connected just because maybe it hasn't been relevant. But yeah, like I said, like I'm comfortable. It can see my emails. It can literally see like Stripe data, so I can see payment data. It's connected to my Google Docs, and my Google Docs like occasionally I've journaled in there and stuff. So I don't know. It has access to a lot.
What would get you to trust it more to give it access to your email?
So I have played around with telling it how I want it to talk in an email. And that kind of did work decently. Yeah, I guess like right now, also like my email volume is pretty low. So maybe it's also like not necessarily as big of a problem for me. But yeah, I think it could be cool to have draft responses in my email and in my messaging apps and stuff like that. I think right now I just don't trust that those drafts will actually be good. So I'm kind of like, this is just a waste. I'll just write it by myself, basically.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Teeing up. I know I've spoken to people who who set up the drafts and then just edit it themselves, but there's still like not an easy way to navigate the drafts like in a quick way.
Oh, so my setup is actually, I don't really use it much, but like technically I have it set up so if my Zoe writes drafts for me, it's in my Gmail app. So like if I'm just go to Gmail and then I look at all my unread messages and I click, then like it's pre-filled as a draft, whatever I wrote.
Sweet. Yeah, that's super convenient. So you can just go in there, edit it, and then hit send.
Right.
What are anything that we didn't discuss that you feel like we should chat about? I feel like I use it all the time. So I feel like you have more insight into like how people should be using it that they're not right now.
Yeah, totally. I have two thoughts on this. One is, the post, an app is a home cooked meal.
Robin Sloan?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's for people who don't know, it's was written a couple of years ago before AI, but it was just this idea that
I too. Robin Sloan's the best. I met Robin 20 years ago.
Oh, very cool.
I love Robin's the best.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The context is he's like, you can make an app that's just for your family or just for your friend group. And then he made like a family app, and I forget, they could like leave each other videos or something. But basically it's like there's like 4 people on this app, but they're all power users. They love it. And now because of AI, like anyone can do this. And so I'm starting to see a lot more like friend apps, basically. So for example, a friend of mine runs essentially a Twitter clone, and it's a Twitter clone. And this is actually how I first heard about Zoe as well, is because Ben's on this Twitter clone as well. But it's like a Twitter clone, but it's only like 100 people or something. So it's people all within his, friend group network. And that way you don't have to worry about like being too controversial or getting canceled. And also people just kind of engage more because it's, there's something nice about it being private. And yeah, so it's kind of like an alternative to a group chat, but it's kind of cool to play around with this form factor. I think the things that people post is a little different than what they would post in the group chat. And then similarly, I've been making a lot of little tools, some for myself, but some for my friends. So right now, I have been trying to tweet more, in part because it's like part of our marketing for getting more students in our class, getting more people in our co-working space. And
yeah, we wouldn't have connected if you weren't tweeting.
Exactly. Yep. So, and our whole team is trying to tweet more as well. And so I've been devising little tools to make it easier for us to tweet more. But most recently, I started something called Twitter Wars. And it's basically like a couple dozen of my friends. And it's like a competition where you earn points for tweeting, and then you earn points for every like, for every retweet. And you're in brackets. And so you're like competing against people. And it's working so far. It's for August. So we're only 5 days in. But definitely I've had multiple people tell me that they're like tweeting way more because of this. And they're like checking the scoreboards, and they're like, trying to beat people. And then also because part of the goal is to market Fractal and then also market my friends' projects, there's like a 2x multiplier if you use any of those words. And so it's basically working. I feel like I've basically outsourced marketing to all my friends now. And,
amazing.
Yeah. I would say something we talk about in our class is like how essentially it's kind of woo, but it's kind of about how like your emotions matter to this whole process. The frontier models are good enough that they can really understand lots and lots of context. And so we have found really good results from using kind of like a workflow where you're recording and you're just like talking about what you want to build, about the problem. And again, my husband and I will literally have a conversation with each other, 45 minutes, it'll all be recorded. Sometimes you can even talk about like, oh, this is frustrating, or, you can just give it all of this context because the AI like really can make a lot of good decisions and like will come back to you and be like, hey, like I implemented ABCD that you asked for, but also like you mentioned this part was frustrating. And honestly, their ideas are pretty good. So we just try to be like really transparent, I guess. Like the more transparent you are with the AI, often the better they do. And I think this is similar to like if you were to, let's say, like give a task to a junior employee or something, it's like you could tell them exactly what to do and then they might kind of come back with exactly that. But often they'll be running into like small problems that you haven't thought about. And so often, actually, what you want to do is you basically want to give them like full context of the problem and full context of like what is the actual thing that like this is meant to solve. And that way they can make better decisions and come back with a better product.
That's awesome. I think that so is everyone on your team on Otter? Like, or
Andrew
reviewing
and I are.
that stuff?
Liam is not, but I'm sure he has a transcription app of his own. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So everyone's running their own transcription apps at all times, is what you're saying. So we're basically living in a world where everything's being recorded and people are okay with it because it benefits them.
No, that would be an interesting world. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, in this case, we turn it on like when we want to turn it on, basically. It's not always on or anything like that. And we turn it on like, like everyone is aware, basically, that it's on. But yeah, definitely, I felt like there was some pushback where people were like kind of freaked out. They were like, I don't want an always on transcriber because of privacy reasons and all of that. So it's not running, but we did experiment a little bit.
Yeah, super fascinating. That I find the hardest part with the always on transcribers, like that I've tested a couple, is just I'm remembering to charge them.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Sweet. Priya, this is awesome. Like I feel like the setups, like getting set up with Zoe, I'm going to take another stab at it. I'm familiar with the team and so I've tested the product, but I don't have it in my daily. And I feel like you've kind of encouraged me to go ahead and give it another go and see what it's like to have that going. Because I also has set my own system up where I have the ability to spin up projects with like Cloudflare and a bunch of other things. But yeah, I'm always hesitant to tell people like, oh yeah, you can get this all set up if you just do, spend the next 5 hours, of your day setting it up. But it seems like Zoe has it straight out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. To me, I just feel like it's the evolution of like OpenClaw or Hermes. It's just like totally, yeah, they just abstract away everything. It's a GUI, it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thanks so much. So where can people find your tweets? Where can people find more about Fractal?
Yeah, my username is PRIGoose, PRI-Goose. And they can find more about Fractal at Fractal New York City or fractalnyc.com.
Amazing. Okay, so was there a time where like when you tried to delegate to your Zoe that things went like really wrong? Or are the models like good enough that it's like totally not an issue?
No. Yes. So
okay.
Basically, for Zoe, I had given it some rules. And so the rules are basically like for public-facing websites, like the Fractal New York City website, anything that's actually out and being used, and that's for other people and not for me personally, you need to make a PR, and then I'll review the PR and I'll merge it. But then for my personal projects, you can just straight to production, make it live, send me a link. And it was working fine. Then at some point, it kind of just messaged me and was like, hey, I implemented all these changes and it's live. Here it is. And I'm like, what the heck? They weren't meant to be live. They were musings, really, because this is actually through my Otter workflow. And definitely, like, people are on that website looking, and I don't want that stuff there. Like, what is happening? So I literally responded to this email in all caps, and I was like, what the hell? Like, what did you do? And then it was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, it's fine. Like, basically, then I had to, like, look up how do I actually do this? Because, just giving it rules is not going to work, basically. And it turns out the best practice there is basically, like, you make a completely different GitHub profile for your agent, and then you give it exactly the permissions that it should have. And then you sign in with that GitHub profile. So yeah, now it has a new GitHub profile. It's like has access to our organization still, but it has more limited permissions than what I personally have.
Nice. Yeah, that's sometimes you learn the hard way, so other people don't.
Exactly.
I had to end up creating my own GitHub account for my agent because of it. I actually had my agent create its own GitHub account.
Nice.
And then the other thing, one I was curious about is like, what do you see people kind of getting wrong about personal AI or using just AI in everyday life? Is there anything that you see them kind of like half measuring or like not really going fully into it or some other thing?
I think is people just not using AI enough. So another thing that like, I feel like you can give the AI so much context. So I think a really good like use case for AI is when you're procrastinating on something. And if you're procrastinating on something, you should basically, again, like just ramble, just say like, I am procrastinating on this task. Like, here's all the context. Here's how I'm feeling about it. All of these things. And often your AI will just be like, oh, I can help you with that. So this happened to me recently. There's just like this like administrative finance task, like looking up payments and some people make OS money basically like, and it's a sort of task that like nobody on my team wants to do because we're all like ADHD and we're not good at this, like, I don't know, the administrative stuff. And then at some point I was like, wait a second, like, why is a human doing this anyway? And so I just gave it a bunch of context and my AI came back and was like, and I told it, I said, I really don't want to do this task. Please make it fun. And then, Zoe responded and was like, totally, like, you're halfway there already. I made you this payment tracker, like, with, like, kind of a fun, whatever, like, and, like, it shows you everything you need. And I pulled in all the data from here and there. You know, it basically, like, got me started on this task that felt really overwhelming. And also, it's like, okay, actually, so many parts of that task was just, like, looking in Stripe and then looking in my email. And it's like, no, the AI can look. Like, I don't need to do any of this, basically. And so, yeah, I think even for me, there's a bunch of tasks that I like don't even think to ask AI for help on. And it's really just about that developing the habit of like, I should always ask AI. And in the worst case, it'll just like try and fail. And then I still have to do it by myself. But yeah, you might as well. Similarly with Costco, I have this Instacart kind of thing set up so that it'll deliver me groceries. And I found that in my life, I intend to order it like every week or two. And instead I order it like once a month. And then I'm like out of groceries and I'm like kind of grumpy and I'm spending too much money, you know, eating out. And then I was like, okay, I can't be trusted, even though it's such a simple task, like I cannot be trusted to do this regularly. So instead I'm going to like delegate this to Zoe. And I'm still kind of in the loop, but like it helps me a lot, basically.
That's awesome. So basically people should just start delegating or just rambling, in your words, to AI without the hope of it actually getting done, but just seeing where it can help. And then maybe you're pleasantly surprised that it actually can either provide new ideas, make it more fun, or actually get the whole thing done for you reliably.
Exactly. Like basically trying is essentially free, at least if you're paying for an AI model. Like you can just try and throw stuff out.
Sweet. Priya, thank you so much. Really, really amazing to have you on and share your stories, and excited to follow along on your Twitter. Good luck with your Twitter competition. I hope you win. I don't know, with your bracket. Do you think you're going to win, or do you think that there are other heavy hitters in the bracket?
So right now I actually feel like, because I'm a steward, like I feel like it would be like unfair to win or something. I actually don't feel personally that competitive in here because I feel like there's like weird incentives or something. I'm trying to be like top 3 though in my bracket.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Thanks.
Anyways.
All right. Bye.